Hello. Today I want to continue with my discussion about addiction. Addiction has a spiritual cause. Okay, we all know about chemistry and conditioning and all of that. It's well known. Can be easily looked up and studied. But there's also, remember, human beings are part heaven, part earth. We have a soul. We're partially spiritual, which you know that. You know that you're more than just an animal. For example, animals don't need hope. Humans need hope. See? It's just a little example right there. Humans have an awareness. An animal is awake, okay, and sees and hears, but the animal is fused to it has its senses. But humans not only can see, but you can also perceive. Not only can you hear, but you can also understand. See, there's an extra level there. It's because you have a consciousness, you have a soul. Okay, but we're talking about addiction. So addiction is stubbornness, not wanting to admit you're wrong. And how does addiction begin? It begins usually with hate. Hatred and resentment. Hatred and resentment of one's failing parents is how it usually begins, especially a father. Most fathers are failures. All fathers are failures. It just depends on whether some wake up to see that they're failures and then cry out for answers. Okay? That's why a lot of kids say, my dad wasn't there for me. How often have you heard that? So, when the child is little, there's so many reasons for resenting father, but I'll just give you one classic. The child is sitting at the table and mom is shoving food in the child's face, shoving food into the child. And the child is, you know how kids go like this and they don't want to eat? Well, you know, when the child's hungry, it'll eat, okay? But when it's being forced, see, but there's something willful. Mother is willfully forcing the child to eat. And meanwhile, what is dad doing? Why, he's just sitting there like a bump on a log. See? So he allows this to happen to the child. He permits it to happen. Okay? There are other situations too where a mom permits the father to do something that's not good, and she lets it happen for egotistical reasons, prideful reasons, for not rocking the boat. See? But the point is that parents with their anger, parents with their impatience, with their lack of love, with their lack of understanding. See, the average parent doesn't have understanding. They can't have understanding because they're separated from their inner ground of good through emotion, through resentment, through making things too important. See, maybe they make money too important, or having a nice house too important, or having things work out more too important, or caring what other people think of them, see, too important. There's just so many things that can make too important. Or dad can make a ball game too important. Mom can make shopping or her friends too important. Very, very typical. But the child sees that. And it's an injustice. It's an injustice, and it's wrong. It's wrong to make anything more important than what you know in your heart is right. See, the little child sees that. Children are very perceptive, and they have a soul. Remember, children are little people with a soul, so the child perceives these things. But when the father allows things to happen to the child, and the father's not there for the child, and the father abandons the child to all these other people, the teachers and coaches and daycare and all these others, and then things happen. See, then father's not there. So the child is forced to cling to mom, to peers, to the gang, see, to something, or to fantasy. See, so the child resents father for that. That's the primal hate, the hatred of father for failing. But of course, now as an adult, you have to see that father couldn't help himself. He was lost. He was lost a long time ago when he was a little child. And nobody was there for him either. And the world was too much for him. So he never found it. That special something, that bond with the Creator within, never found it. So he didn't have it. He didn't have love. He didn't have love for himself, for mom, for your mom. Not true love he didn't have. Maybe he brought her flowers and chocolates, but he didn't have true love, what she really needed. That's why, and she resented him too, because he didn't have love for her, see? So she may have become so, and then you might have resented mom because she became very willful. See, or you resented your parents for fighting all the time. But here's the thing, you have to see that resentment hurt you. Resentment separated you from your inner ground of good. So then you felt empty, okay? And in your emptiness, then you look to the world for love and fulfillment. Maybe you look to food, to friends, to peers, to music, to fantasy, to drugs, to alcohol, to marijuana. You see what I mean? But now here's what happens. When you look to those, then what is in the world gets inside of you. See, it's like if you crack an egg a little bit, just a little tiny crack. And see, an egg is either whole or it's what's the word, rotten. It's either whole and good or it's rotten. It's one or the other. Okay, put a little hole in the egg, or crack the egg a little bit, and it becomes rotten. Well, so you're either whole, okay, and complete within yourself by being attached to your inner ground of good, or you're separated from it, and then the world gets inside. See, and then the world gets into you, the spirit of the world. Let's say the spirit of the world, the spirit of your mom who you hated, or your dad who you hated, or the teacher you hated. See, the spirit of the marijuana, or the drug dealer. See, the spirit, it's a violent spirit. It's prideful and violent. See, once it gets inside, then it wants to grow within you. It wants to grow within. To take you over is basically what it wants to do. And it does. It takes most people over. You see a nice young person, you see the quality of them. See, and then look at them 20 or 30 years later, you can hardly recognize them. They're totally changed. They're changed from the inside out. So now it takes them over. So that's why sometimes when you were a little kid, you wondered why your parents were so into friendship and their friends and you know, sitting around and talking all the time, and your dad was so into work, and they were so into thing. Well, it's because that became their environment. That's where they came. That's where it in them came from, and then it in them was in the process of taking them over. So a lot of times, adult children realize at some point they realize that when they look at their aging father or mother, but you're not even dealing anymore with your real father or your real mother. You're dealing with what's in them. Maybe the spirit of your grandmother, or who knows who is in there or what is in there. But it wants several things. First, it wants you to hate your parents, because that's a forbidden act. See, we're forbidden to hate, especially a parent. See, the Bible says, honor your father and mother. And what it means is, don't resent them. See, you can't honor what's not on. You can't respect what's not respectable. But you can respect the office. See, maybe a particular judge is not respectable, but you can respect the office. See, of judge. You see what I mean? And then don't hate. So respect fatherhood, and don't hate your dad. See, respect motherhood, but don't hate your mom. See, don't resent your mom. Don't resent your dad. See how simple that is? Then you get better. See. So if you can meditate, see, I have a very special meditation, very simple, but it's good because it's coming from the right place and it does the right thing. Okay, so when you can separate from your thoughts, which aren't your thoughts, and your emotions, and even and your needs and your desires and your wants and all these other things, and look at them, okay, then you'll see, do you really want to be a drug addict? Do you really want to go back to that again? Do you want to be any kind, whatever? There's so many different kinds of addiction. Is that what you really want? And the answer is no, you don't really want. But something in you, see, craves that, because that element, see, it anesthetizes your soul, your conscience. It makes you guilty, so then you don't want to come to the light, to come to God and repent, which is to its advantage. Plus, it thrives on those poisons, see, and it thrives on the emotional atmosphere, that destructive atmosphere where things are breaking down and releasing energy. It thrives on that. It thrives on breakdown, just like bacteria. See, they thrive on things being destroyed, breaking down, falling apart. See, so it can see, like buzzards circle around some animal that was killed on the road. See, there are certain creatures who thrive on death. See, well, that's it in you. That's which way it's oriented. So now you see what happened. The world got inside of you through resenting your parents, okay? And then, see, you're guilty of resenting your parents, but then you're also not totally innocent in other ways. For example, your ego, you wanted something from the world. You wanted its love. You wanted worship, admiration, respect from the world. See, you wanted the world to give you back what you thought it had taken from you, which it really hadn't. You lost it through being separated from your inner ground of good. But you looked to the world and you made things too important. You made your being well thought of by your peers too important. You made being attractive too important, or being popular too important. Having friends too important. Being accepted by the group too important. See, not rocking the boat. You made all these things too important. And things. See, these things were all substitutes. Shoes and clothes and jewelry and music and entertainment, and see, all these things are substitutes. See, shoddy substitutes for the real thing, which would come from within, which you would have been separated from. So what you need to do is to refine the inner, your inner ground of good from God, the inner light. Refine it and then attach to it. But in order to attach to it, you have to be willing to admit you're wrong. So now we came back to that again. To admit in your heart that you're guilty of some things, like resenting your parent, for example. See? Or being phony. Or doing unto your kids what was done to you. Or being impatient with your kids. Or making something too important. Or being phony with people. See? Whatever it is. You have to be willing to admit it when you see it. If you don't see it, of course you can't admit it. But when the light, inner light makes you aware, then you have to be willing to admit before the light. So, can you admit you're wrong? Okay? Well, if you're ready to do so, then the meditation could certainly be a big help, because it teaches you how to be still and how to get closer to the inner light. Okay? And then separate from it in you. Remember the worldly part of you. See, there's like two of you. Part of you wants to come to the light. Part of you wants to come clean. See? Part of you wants to turn a new page. Part of you doesn't. Part of you doesn't like the idea of meditating. Doesn't like the idea of coming clean. Doesn't like it at all. See? And it resists. And it, through your mind, will make all kinds of excuses. You're not ready. God hates you. It's not going to work. Nothing will work. You know, you're too far gone. It'll try anything, or it'll steer you to some false religion, some organized religion, or some esoteric practice, or some useless meditation, which many of them are useless, and they're even harmful. Okay. The right kind of meditation is not one of escaping into rosy thoughts or visualizations. It's not one of becoming hypnotized, which is how the world controls you, hypnotized by music or chanting or looking at a mandala or something. It's not that at all. It's just the opposite. It teaches you to stand back from thoughts, to come back to the present moment. See, where the birds are singing and where you can find God. See, God is the missing element also for most meditations, incidentally. But when you meditate properly, see, then despite all of the stuff that it tries to, that worldly part of you says, you know, you're not ready, you're not, this is not good, you shouldn't try this, something terrible will happen. It just goes on and on with all this stuff. You have to just stand back and observe that and not react to it. Don't believe it or disbelieve it, just observe it. It's not credible. You just observe it like a bad TV show. Just there it is, and you're not even interested. Okay? And then separating from it, then you will see that the real you, see, the real you even, here's an example. Let's say you hear bad words uttered in your mind all of a sudden. Where'd that come from? Okay? Where'd that come from? The bad words in your mind. Did you really think those words? No. And how do you know? Because the real you is ashamed. See? The real you is ashamed. So you didn't think those words. They came from somewhere. Okay? So don't worry about it. Just observe them and let them pass. See? You don't have to feel guilty for a bad word that comes into your mind because you didn't even think up that word. See? So you have to clearly separate from what is wrong, what has gone wrong with you. What has gone wrong is this. What has gone wrong is this part of you, this worldly part that came from the world. So if you stop resenting your parents, stop resenting anyone, let go of your grudges. Okay, relax. Don't try to save yourself. Don't resent the light when it shows you, wordlessly shows you that you're wrong. Okay. And then this part of you, then the real you begins to grow stronger again. See? You become like you were when you were a little child, except now you're a full-grown adult with your powers. And the light from God will hold it in abeyance. It'll hold it in abeyance so that you can recover. Okay? Begin to grow as a child of God. Okay? And the real you doesn't see now everything changes. The people who you thought were friends, you see, they're not your friends at all. They were just taking advantage of you and using you and putting you on, and they were supporting what was wrong with you. And then other people who you might have thought, well, they were kind of mean, or they were kind of they were just very honest, you know. And so you didn't like them, but now you see that those people are more your true friends, you see. Before, some substance was attractive because you could escape into it and anesthetize your soul, and it comforted your dark side. But now you don't have any interest in that anymore, see. But instead you have an interest in something like a carrot juice. I'm just making something up, okay? Something good, all of a sudden, really and truly, all of a sudden you just see, well, that would be nice, and suddenly you like that more. So I know a man very well. He started meditating, and one of the first things that left him was smoking. He had been smoking for decades. He just woke up one morning and he just didn't need to smoke anymore. He never did. Never smoked another cigarette or pipe or cigar or anything for the rest of his life. For over 30 years. Okay? And it's still going. So that's the way you see, just one day it just gives you up. You don't struggle with it. You don't try to give it up. You don't try anything. You just meditate every morning, lunchtime, in the evening for 5 minutes. You go about your business you go to work, and you're a mom or a dad or a grandma or whatever you are. And you have recreation. You just go about your life, and then you begin to have little realizations because of your meditation practice and your commitment. See, by doing it every day, your commitment to coming back to the light, and because you want the light in your life, you want God in your life. See, and you're willing to admit you're wrong. Now you have a whole new attitude. Everything changes. See, everything changes for the better, and it's like a complete reversal. See, and before you were an enemy of God, you were an enemy of conscience. You fought your conscience. Now you're a friend of it. Okay? And now you will have a twinkle in your eye, and you will be the forthright one, tending to speak the truth, which some people won't like that, and other people will. See, the people who are not your friends, they won't like it, but your true friends will like it. Or perhaps at first they won't like it either, but then later they will like it because they see that's good for them. See? Everything will change for the better. My name is Roland.